Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffery Combs, it is officially breathe, release, and let go. Doing a little construction work here this afternoon at the Golden Mastermind Seminar Studio, brushing off the dust. Welcome. It is Tuesday, Facebook Live. It is April 4th, 2023. Good to have you here. This is year number 5 of hosting the Facebook Live in the afternoon. It used to be a 10:30 Eastern Standard Time live conference call for years. Anna K. Thompson, good to see you this afternoon. Anna, if you are new to my content and you do like the content, hit the like button and that will put you in the news feed. And if you are not my Facebook friend, send me a Facebook request and I will be honored to accept you as a friend. Brenda, good to see you. Matt Smith, good to see you. Michelle Neisler, good to see you. Good to see all of you here this afternoon. I'll have many people watching in. Then it'll be available on Podomatic and Spotify as we will upload it tomorrow. I've been hosting this Facebook Live, which originally started as a live conference call going back to 1998. So year 25, I believe that is. So Scott Lucas, good to see you. Topic for today's Facebook Live is guilt-free, or I'm going to rebrand it as free of guilt. So to be free of guilt is to be able to separate the feelings from the events that shaped them. Later this afternoon, I'm going to post 4 minutes live of an event I did in Orange County, California in 2018 for Marissa Campbell's team that I did a one-day event, a private event for a group of her team in Laguna Beach, California, in Orange County in 2018. And that content is gold. So to be free of guilt is to be able to release the control that other people have put on you. Guilt is an emotion, and there's a difference between feeling guilty and feeling ashamed. Shame is when it's internalized. It's very personal, and you don't want someone to know about it, and you've done something very deeply that you feel embarrassed or that you feel remorseful, and it's a deep set of pain that you hold on to and shame, and it's a very low vibration and a very low energy. Feeling guilt is what many people put upon us. They use guilt to attempt to control you. And letting go of guilt is very liberating. Now, the feelings of guilt and shame are similar, but for purpose today, we're going to address guilt and the feelings that are created, the emotions that are transmuted, and then the energy that's given off when you're in guilt. It's a very low vibrational energy that will attract your reality, people and situations that will fulfill those feelings. Cassie, good to see you. Barbara, good to see you. Scott and Linda Muldoon, good to have you here on Tuesday, Facebook Live, April 4th, 2023. And the ability to let go of your guilt is being able to separate the feelings from the events. Now, that's not physical, it's emotional. So you're not taking the handcuff off of the handcuff to the radiator or the handcuff to the bed, but what you are taking off is the emotional handcuffs. The handcuffs where you have been guilted by people. If you grew up with people that are narcissistic, passive-aggressive, perpetrators, violators, highly critical of you, there's a high probability that those critical feelings have become part of your identity, and those feelings will be stuffed. So if you find yourself stuffing your feelings with food, that's not guilt, that would be shame that you feel afterward. That's the pleasure-pain situation. When someone uses guilt to control you, they're letting you know that you did something wrong, you did something bad, that what you did not serve them, that what you did isn't for the greater good. You're not respecting some situation. How dare you? I can't believe you didn't show up at my wedding. That's guilt. And passive-aggressive narcissists love to use guilt as ways to control you. You always, you never. You never come to my birthday. You always forget my birthday. These are the tactics of a passive-aggressive narcissist. Narcissists are very charming to certain personalities and very hurtful and harmful to other personalities. If you were married to a narcissist, it's not uncommon for the narcissist to single out one child and groom that child while traumatizing the others. Or that charming narcissist also will charm certain people in your circle of influence while traumatizing you and other people in your influence. And then people will say to you, "Oh my God, I met your husband. He's such a charming man. Oh my God, I met your father. What an awesome person he is." So and you're like going, "Are you kidding, dude? You have no idea what you're even saying." So the ability to free yourself from guilt is to be able to free yourself from the ties that bind. Under-earning, underachieving, not being successful, avoiding paying your taxes, avoiding paying your bills, avoiding situations that you feel deep anxiety about also leads to feelings of guilt. And you know that you should, but you don't, and then you hold on to this guilt while continuing to perpetuate the same set of feelings over and over, creating a similar outcome. And when the pain is great enough is when you will address these situations. However, you can go the rest of your life and never really experience the rock bottom pain or have the courage to surrender. So you can stand behind the glass of letting go and never really understand what letting go really means. Letting go is the ability, your ability, that's yours, it's personal, your ability to separate your feelings. So if you feel guilt, you want to accept that feelings of guilt and on command, let it go. The how do I do that? Well, you do it by a longer breath cycle. There's a space on your nose right here, and there's a space on your cheek right here that you can begin to hold that, press that, and it changes the communication between the brain and the body right there. There's a couple of pressure points right there. Longer breath cycles, breathing into the feeling that you're holding on to and breathing into it and letting the feeling go. You're actually surrendering the feeling. You're surrendering your will to hold on to the same situation. Two of the most important words in this type of recovery is this right here. I want to write this out for you so you can understand this right here. All right, so here's two very important words in this transformation right there. The payoff. The payoff. Right there the words are. I write these on whiteboards whenever I speak at events. The payoff. So what is the payoff of feeling guilty? Well, the addict typically goes, "Well, that's crazy. That's stupid. Why would I want to be guilty?" It's not so much that you want to, but you've become neurochemically addicted to a set of feelings that keep you feeling guilty, which allows you to stuff the feelings with food, alcohol, and other substances. Compulsive debting, gambling, and chronic avoidance is a very common occurrence of the person that is holding on to guilt. And so guilt also will show up in selfishness. Many people are too selfish. They don't want to appear to be selfish, is the real term. They don't want someone to think they're selfish. Well, who am I to live a good life if the rest of my family is struggling? Well, who am I to prosper in today's challenging times when other people are struggling? Well, who are you? You are you, and you are free if you allow yourself to free yourself from the guilt and the anxiety about feeling selfish that your ego is creating to live in the payoff of not being good enough, to live in the payoff of underachieving, under-earning, underperforming, and then pulling it off at the last minute. Addicts always want a little more, and they want more drama, more chaos, and more situations to overcome, which that's what over-obligating is. Over-obligating creates this trauma bond that most of the world will hold on to by over-obligating themselves to others while putting themselves last and then trying, tomorrow was really yesterday, to pull it off at the last minute. And unfortunately, that's what a large percent of the world lives in, and I'm going to highlight this right here. It's called, once again, the payoff, right there, the payoff. So the payoff is the neurochemical bond that is created by holding on to being an alcoholic, by holding on to being an under-earner, by holding on to being an underachiever, by holding on to pulling it off at the last minute. The cardio cocktail, the high that an addict derives from by avoiding and pulling it off at the last minute. That's what a large percent of that is. Or being hungover and then in the afternoon, pulling it off in the afternoon and closing the sales so you can win the contest, or closing the sales so you can win the contest, or closing the sales so you can meet the quota. It's called the pain is great enough syndrome. And we tend to also do this in relationships. We are too guilty to leave a relationship. We're too guilty to leave a career. We're too guilty to leave family that continues to traumatize us because the ego justifies, validates, and creates a story out of the situation to fulfill the feelings. And the payoff of living in that guilt is it allows you to underperform, it allows you to avoid responsibility, and allows you to hold on to the same set of feelings over and over. Now, most of society that lives in anxiety, fear, and doubt doesn't understand in consciousness what that means to let go. So most of the world will say, well, that's stupid, that's crazy, why would anyone do that? Why do I do that? How do I? That's the analytical egoic mind. The pain is great enough syndrome is, it doesn't have to be rock bottom. However, there's a possibility that you may end up at rock bottom. You may end up with no credit left. You may end up with no money left. You may end up with no friends left. NFL, no friends left, no funds left, not for long. The trifecta of the NFL acronym, no funds left, not for long, and no friends, no funds, and not for long. That's the trifecta of it. That is typically rock bottom for a large percent of the population. The origin of guilt is going to be somewhere in your childhood. Someone that you grew up with started using guilt to control you. Could be a mother, a father, a brother, a sister. Can also be society, called trauma-based mind control. This church, this religion, that religion, this culture, that mentor, that boss, that whoever it is that you have been, and then it becomes part of your neurochemical reaction, your neurochemical response of fight or flight, and you're feeling not good enough. And GAT is guilty, GATT, guilty all the time. How many of you find yourself gravitating to guilt far more than you gravitate to being inspired? You gravitate to not feeling good enough than you do feeling conscious. You feel overwhelmed, overmatched, and not able to get up off the mat. You feel overwhelmed with all the situations that you've taken on. You feel overwhelmed and you look at your garage that's filled with all the possessions that you've held on to. You feel overwhelmed when it comes to how much debt you've accrued and created. Well, the debt machine is what America lives in, America and the world. So the Federal Reserve banking system operates off a 9-to-1 principle. For every dollar that goes in a bank, they invent 9 of them. So that's the 9-to-1 fractional banking principle. And yet you aren't taught how to chunk down your debt. You're not taught that. You're taught how to take on a 30-year mortgage, a death pledge, and pay interest on money that doesn't exist. You're not taught financial strategies. You seldom ever pick those up unless you find a mentor who can assist you to change your dialogue with money. Most people stay in the debt cycle, paying interest on money that doesn't exist. And then you hear about the trillions of dollars of debt that the economy is in. And then you hear that Silicon Valley Bank has crashed. Now, an interesting statistic, which is documentable, is Silicon Valley Bank equaled 55% of the banking collapse of 2008. That's how much that one bank had in its coffers and in its money on fictional money that isn't even real. So what that means is it means that then we as society are guilted into complying with the interest rising. So the Fed comes in and bails out the bank, or the government bails out the bank, and the next Monday, all the investors get their money back. Well, interest rates soar. And so we, the consumer, then take that on, and it shows up in your insurance bill. Every single time that you receive a new insurance bill, there's a rate hike that goes up, and that's the way of life that is happening today. So the little guy gets just absolutely chewed up in this cycle, and you keep getting further and further behind, worrying and feeling guilty that you're not good enough, and you're not creating enough, and you're not doing enough, and you're not being enough. This is what the term overwhelming is. It means that there is a space that you're in where you're in a space of overwhelm, and you're thinking, analyzing, processing, rationalizing, in a constant state of figuring out, completely in force, not in flow, not in power. To be able to release the machine, to be able to release your feelings of guilt, requires a word called courage. The minute you step into courage, the minute you have the courage to let go of feeling guilty for not being enough, feeling guilty for being in a relationship that's traumatic, when you let go of feeling guilty for the mistakes that you have made, when you let go of feeling guilty for being 45 years old, living in a small apartment, knowing you have all this talent, knowing you have all this energy, all this juice, and you're just quietly tiptoeing through life, living the greatest pain, the pain of regret. When you address these feelings, it doesn't matter how old you are, it matters how committed you are. It matters the commitment level that you bring to life today. If you continue to under-earn and underachieve, what it creates is not good enough and feeling guilty. And there is no such thing as overachieving. The term would be achieving. You will learn to achieve what you're capable of, rather than playing small, rather than tiptoeing quietly through life. I coached a man today who's a genius, who's in his mid-30s. I've coached Alex for a number of years. And so he came to one of my events in Temecula, California, in 2014 with 9 people. Today, he's moving toward $1 million a month in the 4 companies that he owns, and he's 37 years old. I've been his coach for the last 4 years. So I've watched the evolution of him letting go of control, him letting go of all the anxiety that he was in, him letting go of the multiple addictions that he has held on to where he's moving into higher and higher consciousness. He's been a genius, and he's been able to master multiple businesses at one time. He'll have well into the hundreds of employees by the end of this year. He has multiple people that work in his sales offices in multiple countries. 37 years old. I mean, it's amazing. Non-college grad, barely graduated from high school, and is just starting to really practice being his best self. This could be your story if you would let go of the control that keeps you in control of being out of control. Breathe, release, and let go. So if you are GATT, that's called guilty all the time. How many of you feel yourself living in guilt all of the time? Over-obligating, enabling, doing more for others, thinking that you didn't do enough for others while not doing anything for yourself. Your house is falling apart while you're cleaning everyone else's house. Your life's falling apart while you're gluing everyone else's life together. That's the feelings that you begin to address. No longer the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feelings. Thank you, Brenda. Brenda says, I don't get overwhelmed. Brenda's an exceptional real estate professional in the East Coast. Brenda, go ahead and post your website or your contact information where people in the Northeast part of the United States can find you, because Brenda is a real estate professional who I've assisted to really next level her selling career, where she's moving into multiple 6-figure income. So the events that shaped the feelings. Who did you grow up with that was critical of you? Who were you never good enough for? Who used guilt to control you? That's what you want to be clear with, so that you're not in this brain fog. The brain fog is created by what is called the hippocampus. That's the back of your brain. That's where your memory is. The prefrontal cortex is the component of your brain that is discernment, deciding, and committing. The amygdala is the portion of the brain that enlarges, That's the emotional search engine. The reticular activating system is a component of that part of the brain. And that's so you end up searching for familiar feelings because this brain fog you're in keeps you doing the same thing over and over. You're not crazy, you have brain fog. And that brain fog can absolutely be addressed and released by understanding the trauma bonds, the panic patterns, the anxiety, fear, and doubt, and worry you hold on to. When you have suffered enough, when you are done silent suffering, then you are no longer the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feelings. And instead of living in anxiety, which is be anger, hate, resentment, guilt, shame, abandonment, rejection, overwhelmed feelings, grief, apathy, and pride, you begin to access the feelings of joy, bliss, prosperity, reciprocity, consciousness, awareness, understanding, and knowing. And you begin to live in the know now much more frequently, processing less, thinking less, and spending more time producing in a relaxed body and relaxing in a relaxed body, specifically free of guilt. When you can let go of not doing enough and not being enough, you are moving into states of higher consciousness. If you go to bed and you tell yourself, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't get this done, well, there's a reason it didn't get done. More than likely, it wasn't on a list, it wasn't written down, it wasn't a priority, and these situations are used to feel guilty. The more that you can address why you do what you do, the more you understand the cause that creates the effect, the more you practice on a longer breath cycle, breathing, releasing, and letting go, the more you can surrender to how critical you've been of yourself, the more loving you can be with yourself, the more relaxed you can be in your body, the more you can address your feelings, either the feelings of anger or the feelings of sensitivity and defensiveness, and finding yourself much more in the middle in a place called consciousness. This is where you live in a much more non-attached state of being, where you can fully function and operate in life without feeling guilty about hurting someone's feelings that have even been hurt. When you can let go of worrying about what someone's going to think about you or say about you because you're non-attached. When you can live in a more non-attached state, you're not trying to control people and situations with your own guilt, worry, and emotional state. My name is Jeffery Combs, President and Founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. If you're new to my content and you like the content, hit the like button. That will put you in my news feed. If you're not my Facebook friend, send me a Facebook friend request and I will accept. And if you're also new to my content and would like to book a free 20-minute coaching call with me, feel free to reach out for that. Provided you are serious about one-on-one coaching, I would be honored to speak with you. I'll be back here tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That would be noon that would be 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. Pacific tonight. It is 2 for Tuesday. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Carrie, good to see you. Barbara, good to see you. Wojo, good to see you. And good to see everyone here this afternoon. Gary Wayne Kallstrom. Good to see you, Gary Wayne.